Why would God choose a man alone, exiled on a desert island, to reveal the deepest secrets about the end times? What kind of vision would someone have to write the most mysterious, feared, and discussed book in the entire Bible? John was not just a disciple. He was the closest to Jesus during his earthly life, the one who rested his head on the Master's chest during the Last Supper, the one who remained at the foot of the cross when all others fled. Decades later, already old, he is condemned to solitude on the island of Patmos, an arid place, forgotten by the Roman Empire, but not forgotten by God. And it is exactly there, in this scenario of isolation and silence, that the sky opens up. John hears a loud voice, like a trumpet, echoing over the rocks of the island. He turns around, and what he sees is something no human being has ever seen before. The glory of the resurrected Christ in a glorified, indescribable form, surrounded by 7 golden candlesticks and with eyes like flames of fire. From that moment on, John is not just an exile. He becomes the messenger of the greatest revelation in history. What you are about to discover may surprise you. Revelation is not a book of fear, but of revelation. The word itself means to unveil, to take away the veil. And what John saw goes far beyond strange symbols or confusing prophecies. It is a powerful portrait of the end times, yes, but also of divine justice, the final judgment, and the absolute victory of good over evil. Have you ever wondered why John was chosen? Why him? Why at that moment? All of this carries a hidden meaning, and every detail of his experience on Patmos has something to teach us today, here, now. Stay tuned, because what comes next will plunge you straight into John's first visions, and the moment when everything began to change. But before continuing, I ask that you subscribe to the channel. It makes all the difference. Let's go. John is there, alone on the island, on the Lord's day. The wind blows between the dry rocks. The sea around him seems like a liquid prison. There are no crowds, no temples, no sign that something great is about to happen. But it is in this profound silence that the impossible happens. A voice, not just any voice, a powerful, thunderous voice, like a trumpet cutting through space. It doesn't just speak, it calls. It calls by name, John. It is at that moment that time seems to dissolve. He is no longer limited to that island, that body, that moment. He is caught up in spirit, something that goes far beyond ordinary vision. It is not a dream, it is not imagination. It is as if the curtain of reality is torn before his eyes, and behind it, he sees the backstage of the universe. The door to heaven opens. Yes, a literal, glorious door, suspended in the middle of nowhere, and a voice invites him to come up. Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this. Imagine this, a gap between worlds, a divine invitation to see the invisible. Fabric of history, the true script behind everything we experience. What John sees is not the future as in a vague prophecy. It is the heart of God's eternal plan unfolding before his eyes. This experience is not just grand, it is transformative. It breaks the limits of human reason, changes perception, expands consciousness. He sees a throne in the center of it all, and someone sitting on it. There is no complete description, only an indescribable presence, resplendent as jasper and sardius, surrounded by a rainbow that looks like emerald. Around the throne are thunder, lightning, 7 lamps of fire, 24 elders with crowns, 4 living creatures with eyes on every side. Everything vibrates in worship. Nothing is there by chance. Every symbol carries a hidden truth. Every detail is a fragment of a reality we do not yet fully understand. And the most impressive thing, John is not just a spectator. He is part of the scene. He is there, witnessing what no one had seen before, hearing heavenly sounds that surpass any human language. It is the kind of revelation that shakes internal structures, that changes mentalities, and redefines everything that is understood by purpose, time, and eternity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what happens next is not just a continuation of the vision. It is the beginning of the most symbolic and intense sequence of the apocalypse. The book sealed with 7 seals. The heavenly throne still shines before John's eyes. But something even more remarkable happens. In the midst of the 7 golden lampstands, a presence appears, a figure he recognizes immediately, but at the same time, he is overcome by an incomparable glory. John sees the Son of Man, but not as the Jesus who walked the dusty streets of Galilee. No, now he appears with an authority that transcends any earthly king. His robes are long, reaching down to his feet, and a golden sash encircles his chest. His hair is white like wool, like the pure as snow. His eyes, like flames of fire. And when he speaks, it is like the roar of many waters. This is no mere apparition. It is a revelation, a glorified, resurrected, eternal Christ, the one who conquered death, who holds the keys to existence, and who now appears at a level of majesty that the human mind can barely process. The 7 candlesticks around him represent the churches, not just those of John's time, but all of them, including those of today. He walks among them as one who observes, corrects, guides, and above all, cares. John, who had lived with Jesus in the flesh, who had heard his gentle voice and seen his miracles, now falls as if dead at his feet, not out of irrational fear, but out of reverence for the ultimate truth. It was as if every cell in his body instantly recognized that he was standing before the Creator of all things. This impact is something that goes beyond emotions. It's a transformation of mindset, a spiritual reality check, a moment when everything that seemed distant becomes real, present, undeniable. And even in the face of such glory, Jesus' reaction is not one of judgment. He touches John. Yes, he does. And he says, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last, the living one. I was dead, and now I am alive forevermore." These words are not just a personal comfort. They are an eternal declaration, an anchor of hope for all who face dark times, doubts, and inner struggles. John's mission begins there. He is commissioned to write down everything he sees, every symbol, every scene, every detail, because these revelations have a purpose: to open eyes, prepare hearts, and reveal what lies behind the veil of time. Now I want to introduce you to the 7 cards. They are mirrors that reveal the spiritual state of humanity in all eras. John, still astonished by the vision of the glorified Christ, hears the first great instruction. He must write. Not only record what he is seeing, but send direct messages, letters, dictated by Jesus himself, to 7 churches in Asia Minor. These letters, at first glance, seem to be addressed to specific communities of that time, with real names and cities. But as you delve into the content of each one, something much deeper is revealed. Each letter carries a spiritual portrait, a mirror, an accurate diagnosis of mentalities, behaviors, and choices that, even centuries later, continue to live among us. What if one of those letters was written today and was speaking directly to you? The first is addressed to the church in Ephesus, an active community that worked hard, fought error, and defended the truth. But Jesus reveals a hidden truth. They had lost their first love. They remained firm on the outside, but on the inside, their fervor had cooled. How often does this happen to us? We continue with religious routines, decisions that seem correct on the surface, but we no longer feel that passion we had at the beginning. We no longer move with the same sparkle in our eyes. Next comes Smyrna, a persecuted, impoverished church, seemingly weak in the eyes of the world, but spiritually rich. Jesus is not criticizing here. He is only encouraging. He acknowledges the pain, the suffering, the weight of circumstances, and promises life beyond death. It is a message for all those who today live with the impact of struggle, rejection, and misunderstanding, but remain standing. People who, even in the midst of fire, guard their faith like a treasure. Pergamum receives a letter that mixes praise and warnings. They resisted where Satan has his throne, but they were beginning to tolerate false teachings. Here we see something very present in our days: the temptation to adapt faith to culture, to soften truths, to accept distortions for convenience. A mentality that, little by little, cools the truth and dilutes its essence. Thyatira is remembered for her love and service, but she is also reprimanded for allowing harmful influence within her own community. A clear warning: it is not enough to do good. It takes discernment, clarity, and firmness to not allow error to disguise itself as light. There are times when difficult decisions are necessary to protect what is true. Sardis is shocking. At first glance, it looks like a living church. But Jesus says, "You have a name that you live, but you are dead." It is the portrait of an apparent faith, of a reputation built, but empty inside. Here, the call is to wake up, exit automatic, rekindle what is about to die. Not for appearance, but for real transformation. Philadelphia, on the other hand, is the church that receives one of the most beautiful promises: little power, but great faithfulness. And because of that, an open door that no one can close. This speaks directly to people who may feel small, insufficient, without influence, but who remain steadfast. Faithfulness here has eternal value. And finally, Laodicea, the lukewarm church, neither cold nor hot, self-sufficient, confident in his possessions but spiritually blind. Jesus does not hide his disgust. He says he's at the door knocking, and yet it offers restoration. This letter is perhaps one of the harshest, but also one of the most redemptive. Because even when everything seems lost, grace still knocks at the door, waiting to be received. What John is revealing in writing these letters is not just the state of the churches. It is the portrait of the human journey. There are 7 spiritual realities that repeat themselves in cycles, which are present behind the scenes of the faith of millions of people around the world. Each one carries a key, a warning, an invitation. It's not just about religious institutions. It's about personal decisions, about the impact of our choices, about the transformation that comes when we let these words pierce our hearts, as they did John's on that island. After each letter, something bigger begins to reveal itself. A book, closed with 7 seals, and what's inside him will completely change everything John, and we, believe we understand about the end times. The scene changes, and John finds himself once again before the heavenly throne. But now, there is something at the center of it all that irresistibly captures his attention. A book, or rather a scroll, sealed with 7 seals, firmly closed, in the hands of the one who sits on the throne. This book is not just a sacred object. It carries the destiny of history, the unfolding of the times, the backstage of our judgment, justice, and final restoration. It is as if the entire trajectory of humanity were there, rolled up in silence, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. But there is a problem. A strong angel proclaims in a resounding voice, "Who is worthy to open the book and to loose its seals?" The silence that follows is distressing. No being in heaven, nor on earth, nor under the earth is found worthy. No one, not even the elders, nor the living creatures, nor the heavenly armies. Nothing. John feels the weight of this impossibility and begins to weep. He weeps deeply, with despair, because if the book cannot be opened, history remains blocked, the future locked, justice stagnant. What he witnesses is the anguish in the face of human limitations. It is the moment when no natural strength, no intelligence or achievement is enough. And then, in the midst of the pain, a voice appears. One of the elders approaches and says, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed." John looks up, expecting to see a lion, a symbol of strength and authority. But what he sees is a lamb standing upright, as if it had been slain. This image defies all logical expectations. A symbol of weakness, a sacrificed animal. But it is precisely this lamb who walks up to the throne and takes the book from the hands of the one who is seated. This is the turning point. A revelation that turns all human ideas of power upside down. Worthiness is not found in brute force, but in sacrifice. It is not found in imposing appearance, but in obedience unto death. The Lamb is worthy because he has conquered, not by destroying, but by surrendering himself. And it is he who opens the seals one by one, releasing the sequence of events that John was called to witness. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the opening of these seals triggers a series of revelations that not only herald the end, but expose the hidden workings of human history. And what is about to emerge is breathtaking. The Lamb takes the scroll and begins to break the seals. Each opening is like a crack that breaks something invisible in the fabric of reality. As the first seal is broken, John sees the first of 4 horsemen appear, and with him, a dense atmosphere takes over the vision. They do not appear merely as symbolic figures. They represent forces that span the centuries, powerful, destructive, and yet deeply connected to human choices and mindsets. The first horseman rides a white horse. He carries a bow and is crowned. He goes out conquering and to conquer. At first glance, he seems fair, even messianic, but his symbolism points to something more subtle: false peace, the illusion of conquest, the appearance of authority, the domination that is imposed without being challenged. How many times has humanity been seduced by charismatic leaders who promise order but plant domination? This horseman marks the beginning of the breakdown of stability, the beginning of a cycle of control disguised as salvation. The second seal is broken, and a fiery red horse appears. Its rider has the power to take peace from the earth. He is given a sword, and with it, war breaks out. Conflicts, nations against nations, violence between brothers. This horseman represents more than physical battles. He shows the impact of internal divisions, of decisions made in the heat of pride, greed, and fear. An uncomfortable but necessary revelation: war does not only start on the battlefield, it begins within people. When the third seal is opened, a black horse appears. The rider holds a pair of scales in his hands, and John hears voices telling him the price of food, 1 denarius for a pound of wheat. It is famine, but not just any famine. It is controlled scarcity, an artificial crisis, an injustice in the distribution of resources. It is the distorted reality where a few have too much and many can barely survive. This seal exposes a hidden truth that still impacts millions of lives today. Famine is often a choice of the powerful, not just an inevitable tragedy. And then, the fourth seal, a pale horse, almost the color of death. Its rider has that very name, death, and hell follows him. They are given authority to destroy by sword, famine, pestilence, and the beasts of the earth. Here, the picture is complete. The sequence is clear. First illusion, then war, crisis, and finally, death. A spiral of collapse that unfolds as a consequence of humanity's own moral breakdown. This vision is not just an apocalyptic warning. It is a profound revelation about the behind-the-scenes of human crises, a kind of spiritual diagnosis of the destructive cycles that history repeats. The horsemen are not distant mythological monsters. They are archetypes that continue to act in different forms, today, now, among us. The next seals the Lamb opens not only show what is happening on earth, but reveal the cries of those who have already been sacrificed, and what God does in the face of the injustice that has accumulated over the centuries. When the seventh seal is finally opened, there is silence in heaven, a silence that does not bring peace, but rather expectation. Something is about to happen, something even more profound, more impactful, more decisive. 7 angels stand before God, and each of them is given a trumpet. The sound of these trumpets is not musical. It is a call of warning, of judgment, of irreversible change. Each trumpet sounds and unleashes a new wave of events that impact the earth in a direct, radical, almost apocalyptic way, in the most literal sense of the word. The first trumpet sounds and fire mixed with blood is released upon the earth. 1/3 of the trees are burned, and all the green grass disappears. Creation begins to be struck, not as a random punishment, but as an echo of warnings that have been given since the time of Moses. Nature itself reacts to human decisions, to corruption, to idolatry, hidden under modern forms. There is a visual, physical, and spiritual impact. The second trumpet sounds, and something like a burning mountain is thrown into the sea. The waters become dead, fish die, ships are destroyed. This language harks back to ancient prophets like Jeremiah and Ezekiel, who spoke of kingdoms and systems falling as mountains being thrown into the abyss. Here the sea, symbol of commerce, power, and empires, becomes the field of destruction. What seemed firm, secure, globalized, will crumble. With the third trumpet, a blazing star, called wormwood, falls upon the rivers and springs. The waters become bitter and poisonous, and many die because of them. It is impossible not to remember the plagues of Egypt and the warnings in Deuteronomy about curses and blessings. This trumpet points to a hidden truth. When the source is corrupted, everything that feeds on it also becomes sick. This applies to physical waters, but also to ideologies, systems of thought, and structures of influence. The fourth trumpet strikes the heavenly bodies. The sun, moon, and stars lose a third of their brightness. The light goes out in part, and with it, the sense of direction, the notion of time, the natural rhythm of life. It is a collapse of order, a world plunged into partial darkness, confusion, and disorientation. Isaiah had already prophesied something similar. The stars of the sky and their constellations will not show their light. It is as if heaven was saying to earth, you have no control over anything, and everything that seemed constant can change in an instant. But before the fifth trumpet sounds, an eagle appears flying through the sky, proclaiming in a loud voice, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth," as if to say, what has passed was already terrible, but what is coming now is even more intense. The journey enters a phase of disturbing revelations, which speak not only of external catastrophes, but of a spiritual invasion that exposes the deepest abyss of the human soul. The fifth and sixth trumpets had shaken not only the earth, but the invisible world itself. And it is into this scenario of spiritual chaos that three central figures of the apocalypse emerge, not as vague symbols, but as real manifestations of an organized, strategic, and deeply seductive system. First, the dragon. He appears not as a monster from ancient tales, but as the very symbol of the ancient serpent, Satan, the one who has always operated behind the scenes of history, manipulating powers, hearts, and minds. He does not come with overt violence at first, but with subtle, sophisticated influence, offering dominion in exchange for worship. From this distorted authority, the beast emerges from the sea. It represents a global political power, a system of government and control that fascinates, impresses, and at the same time oppresses. It is strong, eloquent, and seemingly invincible. It receives power from the dragon and conquers the world with its irresistible appearance. There is something deeply disturbing about this image, because it exposes the risk of surrendering to total control in the name of security. It is a structure that seems to offer solutions, but demands something in return, the soul. But the manipulation doesn't stop there. A second beast emerges from the earth. It is different. It looks like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. Here we see the false prophet, not a grotesque figure, but someone who inspires confidence. Someone who speaks of peace, spirituality, and progress. But behind the smooth words, there is a hidden purpose to convince the world to worship the first beast. It performs signs and wonders, and manipulates perceptions. This figure represents everything that tries to distort faith, corrupt the truth, and invert sacred values. And then, the mark appears, a number, 666, the mark of the beast, placed on the right hand or forehead, without which no one can buy or sell. Many people wonder, does this mark already exist? Is it literal or symbolic? The truth is that more than a visible sign, it represents a decision, an alignment of mentality, a voluntary surrender to the system that denies God in exchange for comfort, status, or survival. It is the choice between maintaining integrity or giving in to the pressure of the collective. And the most dangerous thing, this choice will not always be obvious. This part of Revelation is not just a dark vision. It brings to light the impact of decisions that shape the destiny of humanity. The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet operate not only with power, but with emotional and spiritual strategy. They exploit fear, ignorance, the desire for control. And all of this forms the backdrop for a conflict that has already begun. Invisible to many, but active, real, in every sphere of life. As these forces gather, something even greater approaches: the fall of an empire, the ruin of a system that seemed unshakable, and the announcement of a final battle that goes far beyond what the eyes can see. The vision progresses, and now John is led to behold a towering figure, arrayed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and precious stones, seated upon a beast. She holds a cup full of abominations, and on her forehead is written a mysterious name: Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. But this Babylon is not just a city. She is the symbol of an entire system, a mindset, an empire built on lust, corruption, manipulation, and control. She represents everything that opposes the divine purpose, everything that seduces and enslaves under the appearance of glory. Spiritual Babylon is the reflection of a humanity disconnected from its origins. It is opulent, influential, admired by kings and merchants. It dictates trends, creates values, controls markets. But behind all the brilliance lies decadence. Its foundations are made of pride, greed, and lies. And the prophecy makes it clear. This system is destined for ruin. The fall of Babylon is sudden, irreversible, definitive. In just 1 hour, everything that seemed solid collapses. Kings weep, merchants lament. The voices of music and work fall silent. And the world, perplexed, watches the fall of an empire that seemed eternal. But as evil collapses, heaven begins to move. Preparation is underway. A heavenly army is being assembled. This is no ordinary army. It is made up of horsemen dressed in white linen, led by one riding a white horse who calls himself faithful and true. His eyes are like blazing fire. On his head are many crowns, and out of his mouth comes a sharp sword. He comes to judge and make war in righteousness. It is the glorified Christ himself, now no longer as the Lamb slain, but as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. On the other side, the forces of the beast, the false prophet, and the kings of the earth gather in the valley known as Armageddon. It is the climax of the journey, a clash of kingdoms, a battle that is not just military but spiritual, cosmic, definitive. Human decisions, cycles of injustice, silent pacts with evil. Everything now comes to a head at this point. The tension between light and darkness reaches its peak. But there is no balance of power. It is not a war between equals. Evil may have reigned for a time, but heaven was never silent. After the fall of the corrupt system and the final victory over the forces of evil, John contemplates something that completely breaks with everything that has ever been shown. He sees a new heaven and a new earth. The old is no more. It is past, as if it were just a shadow of something greater that was always to come. The sea, a symbol of separation and chaos, is also no longer there. And then the city appears, not an ordinary city built by human hands, but New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven, prepared as a bride prepared for her husband. It shines with the glory of God. Its walls are of jasper. Its foundations are made of precious stones. Its streets are pure gold, like transparent glass. There is no temple, because God himself and the Lamb are the temple. There is no sun, no moon. The divine glory is the light that illuminates everything. And there is no night. Nothing impure enters there. No tears, no pain, no death. What John sees is not just a new landscape. It is a transformed reality, an existence where everything that seemed lost is restored, a life where time has no end, and the presence of God is constant, full, real. Tears are wiped away, one by one. The pain no longer finds space. Death has no more power. It is the reunion with the original purpose. It is the reconciliation between the Creator and creation, between heaven and earth, between what we were and what we should have been from the beginning. This moment does not only speak of the distant future, it plants a seed now, here, in the present, because this promise has the power to transform mindsets, to change the way we see our struggles, our losses, our choices. The impact of this vision is not only in what it describes, but in the living hope it awakens. It is an invitation to eternity, to the total restoration of all things. And in the midst of this revelation, Jesus speaks with a firm voice, as if sealing the entire journey with an absolute truth. Behold, I make all things new. It is not a proposal, it is a promise. He does not simply repair the old, he recreates, he redefines, he transforms from scratch, with perfection, with love, with justice. If this video made you think about what's coming, like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs to know this revelation. And comment below, would you be prepared if it all started today? Thank you and see you in the next video.